Hello there, Dave here again. We dropped off in Genesis chapter 41, and I know we didn't cover it very well because the man that was in prison with Joseph that was able to live and survive prison had remembered that Joseph had interpreted these dreams when Pharaoh was having dreams. Pharaoh was having some really horrible dreams, and the man said, well, I know somebody in prison that interpreted some dreams for me. I bet he could help you out. And he goes and gets Joseph out of prison, and then Joseph is able to interpret the dreams correctly and becomes prime minister of Egypt. And there's 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine that come across to Egypt. And because of Joseph's planning and his diligence, he was able to take care of that. And of course, God giving Joseph and Pharaoh the dreams that he gave them and the interpretation. So it's like, I can't interpret these dreams, but God can. That's how you got to remember that. Genesis 42, Joseph meets his brothers in Egypt. The sons of Jacob return to Egypt because they're just sitting around there staring at each other. And Jacob says, why are you all sitting there staring at each other? There's food in Egypt. Go, return to Egypt. There's food. It's going to be great. Joseph recognizes his brothers, but he's not talking at all to them directly. It's an interpreter. He's speaking Egyptian. They're speaking Hebrew, so he doesn't understand. They don't understand him. Joseph understands them, which is the key to this whole thing. It's a really amazing story when you really dive deep into it, and just overviewing it is very difficult to do. But Jacob's sons, of course, returned home. Then Joseph meets his brothers a second time in Genesis 43. His brothers meet Joseph. There's this whole thing with not taking Benjamin with them the first time. And Joseph interrogates them, because he knows that Benjamin exists. It's like, do you have another brother? It's like, do you have another brother? It's like, because he knows that they do. Benjamin, okay, this is my idea. This is just me, okay? Rachel only had Joseph and Benjamin, right? And you know how some children look like their parents, look like their dad or mom? It is my belief, my personal belief, that Benjamin looked a lot like Rachel. And that when Joseph, who remembered his mom, because Rachel died giving birth to Benjamin wouldn't have remembered Rachel, but Joseph would have. It's my personal belief that when Joseph saw Benjamin, he remembered his mom. And that's what made him kind of just break down at that point and have to leave. So that's just an idea, conjecture, but it's a pretty interesting thought. Anyway, chapter 44, Joseph again tests his brothers. That's all he's doing. His brothers claim innocence. Then they leave, and the cup of Joseph is found in Benjamin's sack. There's this whole thing there. But then Judah interceding for Benjamin when they come back to Joseph is really key. It just shows the change of character of Judah and all the brothers, but mostly just Judah being kind of the leader. Like, take me instead of Benjamin. You get the kind of feeling like, he should have done that in the first place with Joseph. He should have been better at being a good brother and taking care of Joseph, but he didn't. Now he's changed. He's obviously gone through a couple decades of time. And he's like, I'm going to intercede for Benjamin. It's a big deal. Chapter 45, Joseph is reunited with his brothers. He reveals himself to his brothers. He can't take it anymore. He's like, I am Joseph. Just imagine all of the Egyptian he's been speaking this entire time, and suddenly he says the words in Hebrew, which honestly, a well-trained Egyptian probably would know languages other than Egyptian, but I don't know that he necessarily would have known Hebrew. They wouldn't have assumed he would know Hebrew anyway. But the fact that he said it in his voice, and they knew Joseph's voice, because they grew up with this kid. But Joseph, of course, is like, hey, is my father still alive? And all this. It's like, it gets really excited about it. The family of Jacob comes to Egypt. Chapter 46, they bring everybody, the emotional meeting of Joseph and his father. It's pretty intense. I love that. And Joseph, of course, is excited about that. Jacob's excited about that. Chapter 47, Jacob meets Pharaoh. The family then settles in Egypt. Joseph makes deals with them with the famine. Obviously, that's going on still. The family of Israel growing. Jacob blesses Joseph's sons in chapter 48. Jacob adopts Joseph's sons as his own. Blesses Manasseh and Ephraim. Chapter 49 is an amazing chapter. You really just need to pick apart and study, because it's a blessing on each individual son. The prophetic blessings of each son. What's going to happen to them in the last days. Reuben, you shall not excel. Simeon and Levi will be scattered. Judah is an important one. The scepter shall not depart from Judah before the Messiah comes. That is Jesus. The scepter being the law, the ability to pass laws and be able to do capital punishment, that kind of thing, was taken away from the Israelites, from the Jews, during the time Jesus was alive. So he's here. He's the Messiah. It's a really huge prophecy of the Messiah right there. Zebulun, Issachar, Dan, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Joseph, Benjamin, they all get a blessing. Jacob, of course, dies. Chapter 50, the burial of Jacob, the death of Joseph, all of that. And we will be done with Genesis and move on into Exodus in the next video. So thank you for listening. Have a great day.